You're watching HuffPost Live. I'm Nancy Red, and this conversation is presented by Monster, where you can search millions of jobs to help you find better. According to a Labor Department survey, baby boomers switch jobs an average of 11 times before they reach 50 years of age. Now, pursuing a new career happens for a lot of reasons. Some have more fun than others, and some aren't so fun. So whether or not you're looking to try something new or you're being forced into a new field, it's important to make the career change thoughtfully. Joining us to discuss how they've reinvented their careers, we have a great panel, starting with Josh Kilmer-Purcell, the co-founder of the Beekman 1802 Farm and Lifestyle brand. We also have Karen Love, Outreach Coordinator for the Senior Support Organization Community Connections. And here with us on set, we have Dory Clark, a marketing strategy consultant and the author of Reinventing You, Define Your Brand, Imagine Your Future. Dory, I want to start with you because your book lays out the steps for when you want to make a career change. What are some of the key points a lot of people don't think of?
Essentially, when you reinvent yourself professionally, it's a three-step process. The first part is getting clear on where you are now. What is your current brand? Because people think something about you. So none of us is a blank slate. So it's understanding where you're starting. The second step is really getting clear on that future vision. Where do you want to go? And is there a gap between those two things? For most of us, there is. So starting to lay out the game plan for how to bridge the gap. And third and finally, it's living out your brand. How do you manifest it in everything that you do?
All right, Josh, I got to go to you because you are a great example of this with your career 180. How did you go from being a solid Manhattanite to a farm lifestyle brander?
Well, it really wasn't by choice. Both my partner and I, Brent Ridge, we worked in Manhattan. We had great jobs. And in 2008, we both lost our jobs. And so we had to find a way to make our farm pay for itself. And we had sort of inherited 80 goats from a neighbor. And so we started making goat milk soap and started working with our neighbors who made wonderful food products and potters and weavers and blacksmiths. And we created a brand that then we sold to and sell our products to Anthropologie and Williams-Sonoma and now Target and Bloomingdale's. So it wasn't really by choice. It was just a life circumstance that forced us to reevaluate what we could do and what we wanted to do.
Dory, but here's the thing. It wasn't by choice. It was life circumstances. But he looked at the larger purpose and he looked at the larger vision of his life and found goat milk out of just goat milk products.
Yes, for many people when you're doing your reinvention, I mean, the two classic cases are you're either forced into your reinvention. That happened to me as well, actually. At the beginning of my career, I was a newspaper reporter and got laid off and had to reinvent myself. Or there's the case where your reinvention is able to be more planned and deliberate. One thing that I've discovered in my research for writing my book, Reinventing You, is that the more what I call lowercase r reinvention you do, the more day-to-day pushing yourself and learning and growing and ensuring that your skills are honed, the easier it is for you to do bigger reinventions down the road if you're forced into a job change or some other unexpected circumstance.
Right, Josh, one of those little R's that I absolutely love because, like you said, you got some goats, right? And you've got all these goat milk products. But one of the things you've done in a larger way, you've got a live webcam so that people can actually see the goats that they're getting the goat milk products from. This is amazing. How did you glean information from your previous careers that led you to come up with dynamic ideas like the live goat cam?
Well, I think it's you're pointing out a really important point. When we started trying to make a living off of our farm, our first thought, of course, was we're going to learn how to become the best farmers that ever farmed. But it turns out we had a wonderful farmer neighbor who moved in with his goats, and he was the best farmer. And all of the people around us, the potters, the weavers, the blacksmiths, they were already great at what they were doing. And we realized what we had to offer our community and our neighbors was our marketing backgrounds. Brent from Martha Stewart, me from advertising. So even though we weren't going back into exactly our old career, we were using the skills that we learned from those careers and applying them to our new one.
All right, we have a comment from Janet. She says, I created a business solely upon my passions of books, design, and talking about all things I love. I've become truly successful at what I do, and now I get to share my inspiration with the world. There is no better feeling. Karen, I thought of you when I read that because you had a different type of path, right? You chose to leave the newspaper business to pursue a new direction. You weren't forced out of anything, but what made you ready to take on a new challenge, even at retirement age?
Well, for me, it was a matter of repurposing. All of the not only the hone skills, but the dream that I had when I was a youth to be a social worker. And which is what I did. I went back to school. I was an empty nester. I was a widow. My girls were up and doing some fantastic things in the world, and I thought it was time for me to go back and to pursue that dream. So I went back to school. I hadn't realized how many credits I had taken over the years, but I was able to finish up about 45 credits in about a year and a half, and then I went into and got my degree from Eastern Michigan University, and I decided, why not use my skills that I've honed over the years, along with my degree in sociology, and work with seniors? And who better? Here I was, over 65, and realizing that, with the growing numbers of seniors, they were going to need someone that spoke their same language. So I enrolled in a master's program at the University of Southern California and received my degree in gerontology in 2013. So I was able to, again, take all of those skills, spending all the time that I did working in newspaper over 30-some-odd years, connecting with the community and being able to connect the community with the seniors who are in the greater metropolitan Detroit area.
Karen, I love this. It's so amazing. You've got these goals, you achieve these goals at a time when most people think, well, maybe you should just hang up your hat and chillax, right? But what happens when people just chillax is there's this wealth of knowledge that just goes missing because reinvention isn't expected of someone over 65. Do you think there's just a lot of people out there with a whole lot of skills that they're either afraid to utilize, or they don't know how to get the ball going like you did?
Well, I think that, it's been the norm from the majority of individuals to sit down in a rocking chair and read every day, or, that sort of thing. And for me, it was, I'm not going to watch a lot of television. I really have a lot of skills and a lot of knowledge that I could share with other individuals. And the community connection aspect of it was just perfect for me to fall into. And by doing that, it's interesting that you should talk about the skills of individuals. Through what I do at Community Connection, we help individuals to discover the gifts and talents that they have and to help them to understand that they are VIPs and not necessarily they are very important people, but they're also very intelligent people who have a lot of skills, a lot of knowledge that they can give back to the community, and how sorely needed they are to pick up and fill in the gap that society is missing right now.
This is the perfect place to bring Dory back into this conversation when we're talking about VIPs, not just when it comes to important people, but intelligent people, because Dory's written specifically about this. What are those key points about reinventing oneself after 50?
So there are a couple of key differences when it comes to reinventing yourself later in your professional career compared to when you're perhaps 20 or 30 or 40. The most important, actually, that I've seen is understanding that you sometimes need to double down on things that might feel uncomfortable, like social media. And the reason for this is not that social media is the be-all and end-all in contemporary professional life, but it actually serves as a signal to your prospective employers and colleagues. They're not expecting someone who's over 50 to be savvy with social media. And so as a result, if you are, and they see that, it causes them to reevaluate everything about you and say, wow, I should pay closer attention to this person. She's really surprising.
Yeah, you're nodding your head on that one, Karen.
Yes, I am, and I agree with her. My daughter determined that when I was about 62, it was time for me to move into the 21st century and to get some computer skills under my belt. And even though I had started using those with the newspaper, because I was still in the newspaper business. But once I moved into social media, how freed up I became. Knowing that I could do Skype, how I could get on a Facebook page, and how exciting all of that was. And it was like, what was I waiting on? And those are some of the things and skills that we're doing with our seniors, is helping them to understand that Facebook is a great medium for them. Most seniors, if they're on a computer, they're doing it for companionship anyway, especially if they're at home alone. So why not do something would help you to hone your skills that could help you to even get back into the job market? So I truly agree with Dory.
All right,
agree
we
with
have
her.
a comment here from Kira. She says, have you found that most people who reinvent themselves tend to veer out of more corporate positions and into more creative ones? And I want you to answer that in a second. But we have someone here who did that, right? My farm friend.
Yes, I did go from corporate America into farming, into a rural area. But something that Dory said earlier about making little reinventions and every day, as we get further in our careers, in our corporate careers, we almost get more siloed in what we can do. You know, I was in advertising and I had teams of people doing everything, and I was just sort of doing one thing. When I transferred and started my new career as, you know, a farmer and lifestyle person, I had to learn how to.
Or you had to learn how to get you need to get Karen to get you unfrozen.
Exactly.
Our Google Hangout sometimes freezes. But Dory, do you see this a lot? People when they're reinventing their career, do you think people start off with these very serious, severe professions and they realize, hey, look, there's more to life than that?
It's certainly common for people to start out in corporate positions, maybe because of family pressure, that it's a good thing to be a lawyer or to get your MBA, maybe because they're concerned about money initially, and then once they earn enough money, they decide they want to pursue their passions. So it is a common strand. But in my book, Reinventing You, I actually, it's not always the case. I tell this story about a woman named Libby Wagner, who actually was a poet who became a management consultant, which in many ways is actually a harder transition to make because she had to earn her corporate credibility and explain how to tell her story. So it can go both ways, and if people want to reinvent themselves, they shouldn't feel held back. You can do it.
Thank goodness for Dory's book. She jumped in and saved you, Josh. But now go back to what you were saying about being in the creative sphere. And but now you especially do a lot more hands-on than you used to.
I had to learn pretty much everything, you know, myself, learning Facebook, learning how to advertise on Facebook, learning how to shoot videos and cut videos and do all that. I had to learn to do that all from scratch. But I think one thing you need to remember, when you go into your new career, you're not necessarily starting over. And I think a lot of people leave their past behind. So they go into their new creative profession, but they think they don't want to have anything to do with their old world. But one of the things we have to remember is when we change our professions, there was something you were good at and passionate about that got you into that first profession. And if you can remember what that was, you can reapply that to your new profession and be even more successful.
Yeah. All right, and here's the thing. Once you remember that, there's a next step, Dory. And you've got a new book out today, right, called Stand Out. It's taking your career trajectory changes and your possibilities to the next level.
That's right. Ultimately, when you reinvent yourself, it's not an ending. It's an exciting new beginning. And once you've transitioned into the new place where you really want to make your impact, the scenario changes. And the new challenge, and hopefully what all reinventors are working toward, is finding ways to stand out in their new field so that their true talents and expertise can be recognized.
All right, Karen, what is your advice to boomers who are trying to figure out how to get out of the rocking chair and rocking it out in the world like you?
My advice would be just take a leap of faith. One of the greatest enemies of faith is fear. I think that, again, I agree with the gentleman, our goat farmer on the line there, that you're bringing all of the skills that you've learned over the years, because like them, I was in corporate as well, and you're bringing them into a new purpose. That's why I consider myself repurposed in what I do. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and they can do the same thing. Get out of the chair, find out what resources are available to you. We had many people here in the Detroit area that didn't realize that they could go to school for free and get a degree. They were just going along day by day, not considering the fact that they had so many gifts and talents that could be shared with individuals who needed individuals like them in their lives. So just get out, do it. Remember, we're the ones who changed the world, and it'll work for them.
I love that. Josh, what about your advice to anyone who might find themselves not necessarily kicked out of corporate America, but nudged away and towards a different journey, one that might even involve live cameras with goats that are fantastic?
Exactly. Well, I would say one thing is don't take a step and make that a break. It's not an ending and a beginning, as Dory said. When I lost my job and we started farming again, I actually did eventually go back into the advertising world for a short time in order to have that grow our business. So it was more of a bridge and not just a single step. You can't, starting over doesn't mean leaving everything behind. And Brent and I always said, you need to have a plan B for your dream.
Love it. All right. Thank you to everyone for joining me. There's plenty more about this topic and our guests and their projects and books in our resource well below. Remember, this conversation has been presented by Monster, where you can search millions of jobs to help you find better.